I had spent 12 years patrolling rural areas in northern New York State, near the border of the Adirondacks. I knew every gravel road, every unmarked curve, and every stretch where the radio signal began to fail. The night of the incident, I was responding to a simple call. Strange lights seen between the trees and noises that, according to the caller, weren't from any common animal. Nothing unusual for someone used to raccoons knocking over trash cans and lost hikers. At 11:47 p.m., he left the pavement and drove down a forest trail closed to the public. The dashcam recorded grainy, dark green footage, typical of those old cameras that distort more than they help. About 400 meters in, he found the first sign, an adult deer lying dead with no clear signs of predation. It hadn't been eaten, it had been moved, as if dragged several meters with ease. Mercer stepped out of the vehicle, flashlight in hand, weapon secured but ready. That was when he heard footsteps. He turned the beam toward the tree line and saw it. It stood well over 2 meters tall. Broad shoulders, thick torso, not obese but with visible muscle definition beneath the hair. The fur wasn't uniform across the body. The face wasn't flat like a gorilla's, nor fully human. It had an intermediate structure, pronounced cheekbones, a sloping forehead, a strong jaw, thin lips barely parting with each breath. The eyes reflected the light with an amber glow. The creature faced him directly. It simply did not move. He aimed without firing and gave the standard verbal command, "Sheriff's Department, identify yourself." The figure tilted its head slightly, a minimal gesture, almost analytical. It didn't bare its teeth or pound the ground like some primates. It took one slow step, maintaining eye contact. The radio began to crackle with static. The flashlight flickered for a second. That was when he noticed something more unsettling than its size. The posture was too stable. Knees slightly bent, weight distributed like someone trained to react quickly. The officer backed toward the patrol vehicle without looking away. When he opened the door, the creature advanced. He fired once into the ground, aiming to intimidate. The shot echoed through the forest, and the figure reacted with unexpected speed. In 3 strides, it shifted laterally and vanished into the trees with an agility that didn't match something so large. He returned to the station after midnight. The preliminary report described a large unidentified subject, behavior undetermined. The next day, he was summoned by 2 men who were not part of the local department. They reviewed the recording, removed the hard drive, and asked him to rewrite the report as possible black bear observed in bipedal posture. He initially refused. Hours later, the original report disappeared from the system. The version that remained was the edited one. The officer kept a fragment of the footage on a personal drive, but never made it public. 3 months later, he requested reassignment to urban patrol. He never again accepted night shifts in forested zones. Years afterward, in a private conversation recorded by a retired colleague, he explained something he never included in any official document. When the creature made that lateral step, he felt he was not facing a confused animal. He felt he was facing something evaluating whether he posed a real threat. That feeling is what stayed with him. Not the size, not the strength, but the intelligence in its gaze. The file was archived under internal classification. The officer survived, but in his final testimony, he made it clear that if he had fired directly into its chest, he was not certain he would have walked out of that forest. On September 14th at 9:18 p.m., dispatch received a call from an isolated ranch north of the state, on property bordering dense forest that stretched into lightly traveled mountainous terrain. The owner reported seeing a large animal standing on 2 legs near the barn. He didn't say bear. He said the neck was thick and the shoulders looked like those of a very broad man.
The assigned unit was a rural patrol of 2 officers experienced in open land and wooded areas. They arrived at 9:46 p.m. The rancher was waiting with a shotgun in hand and a portable spotlight aimed toward the tree line. The ground showed clear signs of disturbance, fencing knocked down from the outside inward, and deep impressions in the wet mud beside the water trough. They weren't round like bear tracks, they were elongated, 5 toes visible, a defined arch. One officer photographed them with a department-issued phone. The other measured a print using his flashlight for scale. It exceeded 38 centimeters. They decided to split within a short radius, maintaining intermittent visual contact and open radio communication. About 70 meters from the barn, the cattle began to stir without visible cause. The sound was low, uneasy. Between 2 trees, partially covered in shadow, stood an upright figure, taller than an average person. Dark brown hair covered the body. The arms were long, with large hands, hanging relaxed, yet tense at the same time. The head lacked the pointed profile of a bear. It was more rounded, with a sloping forehead and a pronounced jaw. The eyes reflected the light in a dull tone. The creature made no sound. It simply did not move. One officer shifted into a lateral stance, weapon drawn, flashlight fixed at the center of the figure's chest. He ordered it to stop. There was no verbal response, but the body reacted with a subtle change in posture. The legs bent slightly, the torso leaned forward just a fraction. When the creature stepped toward them, the ground vibrated perceptibly, closing the distance enough to trigger immediate threat protocol. Multiple shots were fired at the torso. The impact was visible. The figure jolted, stepped back half a pace, and released a deep, forced exhalation. Instead of collapsing, it turned with unexpected speed for its size and ran toward the forest. The speed was the most unsettling part. It did not run like a human or like a quadruped. Within seconds, it vanished into the dense vegetation. The officers advanced to the point of impact. They found blood, dark, thick, deeper in tone than the usual bright red. Additional support and wildlife authorities were requested. Before they arrived, a county supervisor ordered the perimeter secured and all open radio transmissions suspended. The following day, the official report described the incident as encounter with an aggressive black bear, wounded and fleeing. The photographs of the tracks did not appear in the final file. The blood sample was removed by personnel not affiliated with the local department. Weeks later, both officers were called in separately to give statements. They were asked to revise the wording to avoid unsupported speculation. Neither lost their position, but both were reassigned shortly afterward. One of them later stated that the most disturbing part was not that it withstood the gunshots, but that before running, the creature looked directly at both of them with human intelligence. The ranch returned to calm. No further official reports were filed in the area.
I retired in 2010, but what I'm about to tell you happened in the fall of 1997, when I was still patrolling rural areas of the state, near forested regions that connect to the mountain range. Back then, we didn't have body cameras or technology to back up every word. If something wasn't properly written down on paper, it faded with time. That night, I responded alone to a call about unusual movement inside an abandoned cabin. The place had been unused for years, but some locals claimed they'd seen lights flickering inside, as if someone were coming and going without leaving a trace. I arrived just before midnight. The air was cold and the forest was silent, too silent. I circled the cabin with my flashlight and found no signs of forced entry or vehicles nearby. As I was heading back toward my patrol car, I heard weight settle behind an old, half-collapsed barn. It wasn't a random branch snapping. It was something placing its own body against aging wood. I aimed the beam toward it, and I saw him. He was partially hunched, but when the light hit him, he straightened completely. Nearly 7 feet tall, broad, solid torso, chest pushed forward, abdomen firm. The neck was thick and short, almost merging into the shoulders. The head shape was unlike any animal I knew. His eyes, deep set, did not reflect the light like a deer's or bear's would. The skin around them seemed clearer of hair, making the gaze stand out even more. He didn't move. I drew my weapon and ordered him to stop, even though I knew he wouldn't understand the words. What he understood was the tone. He turned his head first, slowly, assessing the surroundings. Then he fixed his gaze back on me. No sudden gestures, no bared teeth. His breathing was deep and steady. I could see his chest expand with each inhale. The distance between us felt fragile. If he advanced, I would have seconds to react. I chose to fire to the side, not to wound him, but to break the tension. The shot echoed through the forest, rolling between the trees and back toward us. The creature did not run. He didn't even step back. He remained exactly where he stood, staring at me with an intensity that's still hard to describe. The only thing that changed was his posture. He straightened slightly more, as if grounding himself. The gunshot didn't disorient him or trigger panic. Several seconds passed, stretching longer than they were. My weapon stayed steady, but I understood something then. If I fired directly at him, I had no idea what the response would be. He didn't seem like an animal reacting on instinct. Finally, he took one slow step without breaking eye contact, then another. He moved toward the tree line with unsettling calm, as if retreating were his decision, not the result of the gunshot. When darkness swallowed him completely, the forest felt empty again. I approached the spot where he had stood. The ground was clearly compressed. I found no blood, no strands of hair, only deep impressions that matched no animal pattern I recognized. I filed the report as possible bear exhibiting unusual behavior. It was the safest way to close it. Days later, the document was placed under internal review and was never officially mentioned again. Decades have passed, and I still remember that gaze, the certainty that he understood the situation as clearly as I did. I survived because neither of us chose to cross that line. And I remain convinced that if he had decided to step forward that night, the story would have ended differently.